Hi everybody, today I'm doing a review or a case study on a very special type of corset, and I don't even have a name for this corset. I kind of started ironically calling it the friendship corset, and I will explain the reason why in a couple of minutes. Some of you might remember the backstory when I unboxed this corset in summer of 2015. So I'm finally ready to review this piece. So here's the front, the side, the back, and the other side. I received this pattern, not the full corset, but just the pattern, as a kind of posthumous gift from my friend Christine, who was the owner of Ariadne's thread. As you guys know, she and I were good friends, and she passed away in July of 2014. She did a lot for the corset community, including making free corset patterns for people to experiment with, just giving them a place to start with when they were just starting making corsets. And what I didn't know was that she was actually secretly working on a custom fit pattern for me. She had taken my body measurements from my website, and she was apparently doing some final tweaks. She had given this pattern to my friend Amber of Lovely Rat's Corsetry, and was getting her opinion. And she actually did not give me this gift, this custom pattern, before she passed away. So I had no idea about it until Amber showed it to me later on. So in June of 2015, I was in Thailand, and I decided to pick up some nice fabrics for myself that I couldn't normally find at home. And one of the fabrics that I chose was this gorgeous sort of iridescent dragonfly type of, I think it's called a crystal organza. And I love that it had like a soft pink undertone, but then it had a shine of green and like different subtle colors in it. So I picked that up, and before I went home, I flew right from Thailand to Texas, where I did some filming for Thomas Trends, and from there I stayed with Amber for a couple of weeks, and we decided to make a corset together and sort of do like a, I guess sort of like an internship, and compare and contrast our different ways of constructing corsets. And we thought it would be kind of nice to use Christine's pattern because it was already designed to fit me, and it was a nice way to remember her. So that's why I say that this is a collaboration between 3 different people, and I call it the friendship corset, because I sort of feel like Christine's memory is kept alive through this corset. And I know that sounds incredibly cheesy, but this corset does still mean a lot to me. So the pattern is from Ariadne's thread. The fabric was chosen by myself. The type of construction is typical of Lovely Rat's Corsetry, and it was constructed by all of us together. So like I said, this corset was drafted to fit my body, or at least my body back in 2014. So if you're curious about the measurements, the center front here is 12.5 inches. At the princess seam here, under the bust to the top of the lap here, is 9.5 inches. At the side seam here, it is 10.75 inches, and in the center back, it's 11.25 inches. And for the circumferential measurements, it's made to close at a 23-inch waist. The rib cage here is 29 inches, and the high hip here is 35 inches. Now, it's a little bit big on me in the hips here because I did lose weight since 2014. Obviously I'm not going to fault Christine for that, because how could she have predicted that sort of thing? And really I should have tried on a mock-up before Amber and I made this corset together, but we had limited time together, so we just decided to get right on to making a final piece together. And even if it doesn't fit me perfectly, I can just wear a puffy skirt under it. I will still wear it proudly because of the sentimentality of it. So let's go to the tabletop portion, and let me show you all the details of this corset close-up. So here's the corset laid flat, and for the material, it's 3 main layers. The fashion fabric, again, is this gorgeous sort of crystal rainbow organza that is pink, and it's shot with, you know, green and a slight hint of like blue as well. And that was fused directly to white herringbone coutil. Now I originally wanted to take this organza and flatline it to a sort of corsetry mesh, like that heavy duty netting, so that you could retain a bit of that transparency. Unfortunately, due to time constraints, we weren't able to buy and have it shipped to Amber's place before I had to leave. And also we wanted to play it safe and just back it onto something that we know is quite sturdy and resistant to stretching and whatnot, because we know that the organza can be quite delicate. The boning channels and the binding and such was made with this satin coutil. This is cotton back satin. So this is strong as coutil, but it has a satin finish. And this was actually hand dyed by Amber. And it had been in her stash. She didn't really know what to use it for, and by some miracle, it just happened to perfectly match that slightly green sheen that's on this organza. So we decided to put it together. And inside, I chose this really beautiful kind of springy watercolor kind of Monet style lining. This is what the Lovely Rats label looks like. So you can see it's two rats, their noses are together and their bums are making a heart. She offered to also put my label in this corset, but I actually didn't have any labels with me at the time. So yeah, my label's not in here, and Christine's isn't in here either. This corset has a 6-panel pattern, and it's a little bit difficult to see on the outside because of the equidistantly spaced boning channels. So on the inside, you might be able to see it better. Because of the top stitch here. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And you can see panels 1 and 2 kind of converge down towards the center front, for a little bit more control over the tummy here. Panels 3, 4, and a bit of 5 also give a lot of curve over the hip. So how this corset was constructed is we took the organza and directly fused it to the coutil. And then we treated it as one layer and assembled the corset together with the seam allowances facing the inside of the corset. You might be able to see that there's a really, really tiny top stitch, very tidy, that's Amber's work, very tiny top stitch in between each of those panels. And then we laid down these single boning channels, one next to the seam, one in the middle of the panel, all throughout. And then we added the floating lining last. So this floating lining is on the inside. You can see I can actually pull it away from the rest of the corset. On the outside, you can actually see the outline of the waist tape. So it's a 1-inch wide twill waist tape that extends from the center front all the way to the center back here. And as mentioned before, the binding is made from bias strips of this hand-dyed satin coutil. It is machine stitched on the outside and hand finished on the inside, so it has a very smooth finish. We didn't have time to make a Modesty panel in the back, but that's okay because I tend to lace my corsets completely closed in the back anyways. But we did have a Modesty placket. This is Amber's way of putting in a Modesty placket, so you can see that it has the same material as the lining here, and it is actually underneath the busk. It's from behind the busk as opposed to extending directly out of it. The busk in this corset is nearly as long as the center front itself. The center front is 12.5 inches, and we used a 12-inch busk. And this is a heavy-duty busk. It is actually a little bit more than 1 inch wide on each side, and it has 6 loops and pins all equidistantly spaced. It is a very sturdy and stiff busk. This keeps the center front totally flat. Now, as mentioned before, the binding was mostly machine stitched on the outside and hand finished on the inside, so you don't see the seams on the outside or the inside here. But around the busk here, the busk actually extends a little bit into the binding, and that's why when you put it together and you are lacing under pretty high tension, the top and the bottom does not splay outwards. It doesn't kind of open up and show like a tiny bit of your shirt. Because the busk is giving that vertical tension, that sturdiness to the center front. It just stays totally flat and closed. So aesthetically, as a wearer of corsets and a customer, I really appreciate this. But as a corset maker, I personally found this to be the most frustrating part, because it's also the very last task that you do before the corset is essentially finished, apart from the grommets. But Amber is an expert at hand binding around the busk on the outside and on the inside, so that it is both tidy and functional. This corset has a total of 24 bones, 12 on each side, not including the front busk here. So it's actually a pretty heavily boned corset. Like I mentioned before, single boned, one bone adjacent to the seam, another bone in the middle of the panel. And these are 1/4 inch wide spirals. They are attracting my magnet, but the corset itself is pretty thick and heavy, so it's not like pulling off of the table. And in the back here, it has 1/4 inch wide flat and 1/2 inch wide flat, sandwiching the grommets here. There are 22 grommets in the back of this corset, 11 on each side, size 00 with a medium flange and finished in silver. You might recognize that this is the same brand of grommets that so many other American corset makers use, and I was so happy to be able to use Amber's grommet setting machine. I set the grommets. It was so much fun. This is what the underside of the grommets look like. So you can see nice big washers. The grommets rolled okay, but this was the first corset that I set grommets in. I helped Amber with a couple of other corsets, I believe, after this one. So I was still kind of getting the hang of using this machine. And you can see kind of towards the bottom I was getting better at rolling the grommets. And the laces are a 1/2 inch wide double-faced satin ribbon, and they're chosen in this kind of juicy lemon lime kind of Granny Smith apple green to match the rest of the binding and boning channels in this corset. They glide well through the grommets, they hold knots and bows well, they're very flat in profile if I try to wear a corset with ribbon underneath clothing. Obviously this is not the type of corset that you would want to stealth with in the first place. But yeah, apart from say rat tail cord, which would actually be really cool in this corset because lovely rats, huh? A double-faced satin ribbon is my next best favorite when it comes to laces in the back of my corset. And this concludes a case study of this very special friendship corset, which is a collaboration between Ariadne's thread, Lovely Rat's Corsetry, and Lucy's Corsetry. I hope you enjoyed it and you learned something new. If you did, please remember to click that like button and help support this channel. If you have any comments or questions about this corset, feel free to leave a comment down below. I'd be happy to get back to you. And if you have any questions directed towards Amber, she does have her own YouTube channel, but if you do leave a comment down here, I'd be happy to just call Amber over and have her answer the questions for you as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next week for another video.